The following program is rated D for dumb.
Baby left me, my best friend's not at home. Can't get that woman off my mind. I've never been the brooding kind, but there's still one thing makes me come alive. Yeah, I'm going for a drive.
The following podcast is rated D for dumb. You're listening to Dumbing It Down with Dave, the fastest podcast on earth. Listen to Dave commute to and from work on the New York State Thruway in his 2008 Kia Rio LX. He talks about pragmatism, truth, happiness, and the search for it all. Join Dave as he asks and tells you how life ought to be. And now, here's Dave.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Dave Canyon. Are you ready to dumb it down? All right, let's dumb it down, dum-dum style. Dave Canyon here on the New York State Thruway, northbound, headed to work like I usually am. I do this podcast. It's a car cast and a podcast. It's a dumb cast and a car cast and a podcast. And I do it in my, it says in the intro, in a Kia Rio, but I'm actually doing it in a Dodge Caravan. I've done it in a Honda Fit. So it doesn't really matter where I'm doing it. It only matters that you're listening, and I appreciate you guys tuning in and finding the show however you found it. And feel free to share that information with me via Twitter at @DumbWithDave, or here on the Spreaker app that I'm recording on and who hosts my show. You might be listening on Podbean or Stitcher. There's not too many other platforms out there that you can leave a comment. That's why I invite everybody over to Spreaker, because you can leave an immediate comment. I've been listening to podcasts again. I actually took a long break for months and months, other than Awesome Insanity Surfers with Linda Irwin, and maybe Live Talk with Alex Exum, and possibly, it doesn't matter, Comedy Pipe. You know, I really stopped listening to podcasts. I just didn't have the mental capacity for it. But I noticed some of the ones that I've been discovering and some of the ones I've been rediscovering is that they don't have a comment section. You really can't comment on that particular episode. So I find it fascinating that so many of these podcast host platforms exist. There are very many of them, almost all of them are similar. They're very, very incredibly similar. It's very hard to do anything that differentiates your platform from another platform. But I have to toe the Spreaker line on this particular thing, on this particular aspect, because they have a Spreaker box. You can just leave a comment, which a lot of you have been doing, which is really fantastic. If you listen to the first, which I don't recommend, and I'm not saying that to entice you to listen to it, because they really don't do it. But if you listen to the first 30, 40 episodes, I'm like begging people to leave an email. You know, send an email at dumbingitdownwithdave@yahoo.com, or leave a comment in the Spreaker box. And frankly, that's kind of pathetic. You know, it's pathetic that I needed it, you know, that I really wanted it so badly. But really, the truth was, the smarter self, the 194 episode, Dave, this is episode 194, by the way, 6 from 200, would have told myself, if I could go back and tell, hey, man, just do content. Just worry about doing a great show. Don't worry about it. The emails will come. And they have been coming, not the emails so much, but the Spreaker comments, which is fantastic. I appreciate you all doing it when you do it. Some of you do it a little bit. Some of you do it a lot of bit. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. But I like quantity, but quality is nice too. So, and just because you have quantity doesn't mean you don't have quality. Some of you have both. Really fantastic. So, thank you very much for commenting and participating in what's been, I don't know, sort of a rejuvenation since the reboot, I think. I've taken a couple of podcations, and we're up to episode 194. So, yeah, I'm amazed when I listen to these other podcasts. I listened to one today called All Things Post. All Things Post. It's really more of an industrial, technical podcast. for people that do sound editing and all that type of stuff. It's called All Things Post. If you've ever heard of the phrase, we'll fix it in post. So this guy took almost a year. He did his last podcast in March of 2019 and came back, I think today or within the last few days, and posted his episode. So between episode 72 and 73, he had almost a year, like 10 months. That's a lot. I don't even know if I've taken a 10-month podcation. So sometimes it's necessary. But I was listening to his show today, and I heard it on Apple Podcasts. Apple Podcasts. You can't comment per show on Apple Podcast, and that's frustrating for me as a person who likes to engage. I think he's also on Stitcher. So I think from here on in, I'll try to listen to a show on Stitcher. I think in Stitcher, you can still leave a comment. And I've been talking about this for a long time with you guys, and I haven't really made a list of all the platforms I'm on, and which one has any great sort of advantage over the other one. If you're here on Spreaker, thank you very much. If you're not, I don't know. I don't know where you are unless you tweet me at dumbwithdave, email me at dumbingitdownwithdave@yahoo.com, go to my website, davecanyon.com, which is also, I think, dumbingitdownwithdave.com, and a few other URLs, whatever they call it. And there's a comment thing there. It actually works. There's a page. There's a form. And you can go to the website. I encourage you to listen on the website, too, by the way. You can listen on my website. And this isn't just the first, 15 minutes of the show to talk about how to listen to Dumbing It Down with Dave. It's a show about human behavior. It's a show about possibilities. It's a show about mindfulness. It's pragmatism, truth, happiness, and the search for it all. Yeah, and I'm searching for the perfect podcast platform. I am. I'll always will be. And right now, Spreaker is pretty perfect. And I don't have any contract with them. We almost did a couple years ago, but like an idiot, I let the email sit in my mailbox for 2 years, and by the time I revisited it was too late. Contract was taken off the table. But and not for any bad reasons. It's just that time had passed. They had been bought and whatever. Voxnext. It got all complicated, so they couldn't honor the original offer. But that's okay. I was going to give you a code, like dumb. Probably every time I give a code, it'll be DUMB. You'll get 10% off or whatever like that. But I didn't react in time. That was probably right after Podcast Movement 17, and I blew it. I totally blew it. I think it was 17. It doesn't matter. But I blew it. It would have been nice to have a nice contract with a podcast platform where I pitch it to people like I'm doing it now. You guys sign up and you use the code, and you get a discount, or I get a few pennies, a few shekels, as they say. But it's okay. But you still should use Spreaker, even though I don't make any money on the deal. There's no incentive for me, except the world of podcasting just gets a little bit better, because they are pretty much one of the best platforms. Yeah, a lot of guys go to Libsyn. Libsyn. Dave, is this going to be a podcast about podcasting? I don't know. I've never really done that, I don't think. But there is a company called Libsyn. You know why I'm saying it? I'll tell you why. Again, human behavior. Maybe you've been listening and you're been inspired. Like, oh, you know what? I like what Dave does, or I don't like what Dave does, and I can do it better. By the way, that's usually my motivation. Yeah, I like what he does, but not really. I can do that better, and then I do it. and I think I often do it better, but oftentimes I probably don't. But that's okay. It's good to have an ego. It's good to have an ego to propel you forward. I know my ego definitely does that for me. I don't know how it does for you, but so anyway, moving forward, yeah, you can go to Libsyn, you can go to Podbean and Buzzsprout and Stitcher. There's so many, really so many. But if you are going to podcast and you need help with podcasting, contact me, and tweet me at Dumb with Dave, or here on the Spreaker box, give me some information to get back to you. I do like to consider myself the pragmatic podcaster, because I do things pragmatically. There's no bells and whistles here. I'm sitting in my car seat with my seatbelt on. I got at least one hand on the wheel. Sometimes I have two hands on the wheel. I don't have a stick shift, so my other hand is free. And I got out my iPhone 6S is in a thing up on the windshield. I got my earbuds, whatever you want to call it, my headset, my whatever the thing with a 3.5-inch plug. It's plugged into the bottom of the iPhone. I know now they don't do the plug. Now it's all Bluetooth. But I don't know if you can do this with Bluetooth. I really don't. I have no idea if you can. If you have an iPhone 10 or 11 or 8 or X or whatever number they're up to. But that's how I do it. Very pragmatic. And I used to have the lowest, cheapest deal with them. And then when I had this reboot, I think it was about episode 100, I went to the next highest package. They have like 3 or 4 different levels at Spreaker. So, again, I'm not a pitch man for Spreaker, but I do because I think they're the best. I definitely have been on all of them as far as a listener. I've not been on all of them as far as a producer. So as a listener, I still like Spreaker the best because it's, as a listener, you get to participate by commenting if you so desire. I do desire. And you can read what other people are saying if you desire, which I do desire. And I think the site is very intuitive. You know, the site itself, the app, the listening app is very good. You can fast forward, you can rewind, you can listen to it at a higher speed. You know, it's good stuff. You can share it with your friends. You know, a lot of them have all the similar features. But I think one of them has like a sleep timer that you can actually have it stop because you're going to fall asleep listening to it, so it doesn't play in your ears and over and over again. All right, if that's what you want, then that's what you want. I don't know if Spreaker has that. Anyway, and the customer support is good. The only thing I could tell you, and I'm going to be very honest with you, not that you're sitting down on pins and needles, on the edge of the seat, but the only thing about Spreaker I can tell you that I think they need to work on, and there's a few things, but I'll say the only thing really is that they have a sort of strange search engine algorithm. In other words, sometimes I look for a show and I can't find it, but I know it's there. I know it's on Spreaker, and I put in the guy's name that hosts the show, or I put the name of the show. It's weird. Sometimes you search for something, it doesn't pop up like it should. So if somebody from Spreaker is listening, I think they're aware of it. I think they've mentioned it before in their blogs and stuff like that. They're going to work on their search engine algorithm. But they're doing good things. They're doing good things. And on the recording studio app, they let you edit, but they don't really let you edit. It's not like a full editing bay. They let you like snip off a little bit here or there, and I really haven't delved into that whole area because I get very nervous with my drafts. So like I promised you many episodes ago, as soon as I'm done with the podcast, boom, I save it. It goes to my drafts, and hopefully never to be lost, because I have lost 2 episodes. My phone has eaten a couple of episodes. Anyway, so that's 12 minutes of podcast talk. But, I try to throw in some behavioral stuff. As a human, I like things that are comfortable for me. All right? Don't you? You like things. Do I like uncomfortability? Yeah, it all depends. Like, for instance, when I drive a tractor trailer. I do that for a living. I work at nights. And I often drive in hazardous conditions, such as snow and rain. And sometimes I drive in fog. And I think I normally drive in fog like right before the sunrise. I think when there's a change in temperature, I think that's when I see most of my fog. And maybe it's different down south than it is up north. I don't really know. I have a buddy of mine that, my buddy Mark, he drives a tractor trailer down in Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, Pensacola. He's down there. And I think he has fog more than I do. But on the New York State Thruway, you will get fog. And I will tell you, it's disorienting. Fog is definitely disorienting. And by the way, for those of you that have seen or heard the term fog lights, they don't work. Almost every truck I've driven over I don't know how many years has fog lights. White fog lights, yellow fog lights. And all I ever see them do is illuminate the fog. It's not like they cut through the fog and you can see what's going. They might cast a wider band, to the left and to the right, but I don't need to see what's on the shoulder, really. Although, I guess I do need to see the guardrail or delineators or mile markers or things like that. But it's all on the ground. So if you've been wondering all your life, you're like, what's with those fog lights? I should get some for my car. Well, you could, but just don't expect any miracles. You're just going to see really more fog. And on top of that, so here's where the pragmatism falls into the show. Even if you had fog lights, when you're driving a truck or a car, it doesn't matter. Motorcycle, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know why you would drive a motorcycle in fog. That's got to be the worst, because you have no protection. Whatever you hit, you're going to hit it at 65 miles an hour. You can hit it at 50 miles an hour. You can hit it at 75 miles an hour. You can't see further than the speed that you're going. They say you should only drive as fast as the speed that you can see. Right? So right now, I'm on the thruway. It's incredibly clear. I could see, I don't know how far I can see. I'm not good at measuring distance with the naked eye with tail lights. But I guess I could see a half a mile. Maybe if the road dips a little bit or the road goes up, however, there's a valley or peak, maybe I can see 3/4 of a mile. Can I see a mile? I don't really know how that works. I know I can see far enough, especially with these disco lights that these state troopers have. These blinding, by the way, dangerously blinding trooper lights. Jersey, forget about craziness. New York State, insane. So I think they all went to the same disco lights. I'm sure the guys that used to own Studio 54 are now like super rich if they're still alive. What was it, Steve Grobel or some other guy? With the disco lights. Somebody really made a fortune selling these guys lights all across the country. And I'm going to contest that they're not legal. That there's no jurisdiction over police departments and their lights, the certain amount of lume. I've talked about this on the show. I've never investigated it, but my guess is that there's a certain illegality in what they're doing because it's way too bright. Anyway, and I love when there's 5 cop cars, all fire trucks, and everybody's on the scene. It's like, holy cow, what do we got going on here? Why can't one guy have his lights on? Everybody else just dim them a little bit. It's blinding. Anyway, what was I getting to? I was getting to something. So I can see when it's clear out like it is now. But when it's foggy out, you're supposed to only drive as far as you can see. And if you can only see 1 foot, what's the appropriate speed for 1 foot? 2 feet? 3 feet? 4 feet? Go ahead, 10 feet? It's all the same speed, like 1 mile an hour. So it doesn't matter. Fog lights are useless. I can't believe they even sell fog lights. Fog lights to driving a car or a truck is like vaping is to cigarette smoking, I guess. I don't really do that a lot, those analogy comparisons. What am I, an SAT preparer? Anyway, yeah, it's the same thing. What's the point of seeing what's in front of you if you're just going to hit it at 65 miles an hour or 75 miles an hour? There's no point. But whatever, they exist. I'm sort of trying to get to something else, by the way, in a roundabout way, because I don't really want to talk about it as much, because I really wanted to prepare an episode for it. I don't think it's going to be episode 195. If I have time this weekend, maybe it'll be episode 196, because it's worth preparing, unless I go off on a tangent and I don't come back, in which case, forget about it. I'm not going to do it in 2 episodes. But we all know about the news of Kobe Bryant crashing in his helicopter and all that. Not his helicopter, whatever helicopter he was in. And it's a horrible story. 9 people dead, children, parents, people who are important to other people. They might not be important to you. They might not be important to me. But when people die, they're important to somebody. Most of the time, when people die, they're important to somebody. And if you're not important to somebody, that's really sad. I think there are people that die that nobody could care less about. That's pretty sad. That's how it goes. That's what happens in this world. But when I heard about him flying in fog, I know that I have an acquaintance, a depleter that I know, that works for a helicopter company. I've mentioned him on the show before. He's been a guest on the show. It doesn't really matter. But I know that I've spoken with him, and his company, I think it's called Associated Aircraft. I think that's what it's called. It's part of Sikorsky, or used to be Sikorsky. Doesn't matter. They're famous for their helicopters, I think. Sikorsky Airlines, Sikorsky helicopters. Anyway, they fly the rich and famous, and the rich and not so famous. The Seinfelds of the world, the Steven Spielbergs of the world. I think Carl Icahn or something like bank owners, guys that own these banks, or maybe they own hedge funds. I don't know, but really incredibly super wealthy people. Nobody commutes with a helicopter and isn't incredibly wealthy. I'm sure all these people arrive at the heliport in a limo. They're not taking cabs. Maybe, it doesn't really matter, but they're incredibly wealthy. That's very, very, very expensive. Way beyond your wildest dreams to fly a helicopter, even the shortest distance. Even from 10 miles, I think I've spoken about it recently, maybe, from Teterboro Airport, New Jersey, across the Hudson River to the west side of Manhattan. Yeah, it is It is very expensive. Thousands and thousands of dollars. There is no budget airline, helicopter. Not that I know of. There is, even if there was a budget, we still couldn't afford it. There is no, if you go to New York City, you fly a helicopter as a tourist. One of those, and by the way, on a beautiful sunny day, a beautiful warm spring, summer, or maybe even fall day, when you go down Manhattan and you go down to the Lower East Side, I don't know about the West Side. I don't think so. Is on the West Side. But if you go down to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, down by the Staten Island Ferry Terminal, down by the Staten Island Ferry Terminal, there's a couple of piers, or maybe there's one long pier, P-I-E-R, a pier, and oh my God, it's like I don't know what it's like. It's like a helicopter airport. Really, they just take over these piers that used to be in business for shipping, and now they're in business for landing helicopters. And oh my God, they're hovering all over the East River. The Hudson River is on the west side of Manhattan, by the way, for those of you that want to know. The Hudson River is on the west side. The East River is on the east side of Manhattan. That's how you know the difference. The East River is not the Hudson River, and the Hudson River is not the East River. But and people used to swim in the East River, by the way, back in the day. Probably before they knew any better, before anybody dumped any toxic chemicals into the East River. And there's also bodies in the East River that nobody wants anybody else to find. Anyway, little New York trivia. So, it's crazy to watch these things take off and land. There used to be a heliport years ago when I was a limo driver. There used to be an airport, a heliport, by the 59th Street Bridge, and I would park there. And I would just hang out, wait for a call to go anywhere. It was nice. I sit there and watch helicopters take off and land. I enjoy that. Years ago, my father used to work at Kennedy Airport, and I remember there was I think it was called New York Airways, these red, like Red Apple, when New York always likes, the Big Apple thing. And I would sit there and watch the guys open doors, close doors, throw in luggage, fuel, the guys with headsets on and outfits, all these different colored outfits, and, these little golf carts running around, all these different things, all, the support vehicles, the support team. I found that very fascinating. You're a little boy and you're waiting for your dad to get done working, and you're sitting with your mom and you've eaten all the food you can eat, and you're just bored out of your mind. You're a little boy. A little kid. Doesn't matter. Little David go out to his window, put his disgusting fingers up on the window and his face, and probably God knows how many millions of germs I contracted and exchanged with the window there at the Kennedy Airport. But I would watch this helicopter company, and I found it fascinating. Anyway, that all being said, on a beautiful day, there's so many, and it's got to be fantastic to fly around Manhattan. And I think we've, considering how many hours those things are in the air, constantly in the air. It's amazing we don't have more stories of things, falling down from the sky. We've had a couple, and we've had a couple of news copters, I think, all over the United States that have crashed. But driving in fog is one thing. It's not just one thing that's different. It's the same. It's disorienting. Where's the guardrail? It's one of the first things. Even if it's a whiteout, same thing as fog. Where's the guardrail? Am I on the road? Where's the yellow line? Right now, I'm driving on a newly paved, blacktopped New York State Thruway, and the yellow line is right there in front of me. By the way, I think I missed my loop-de-loops. I think I bypassed Catskill and I bypassed Coxsackie. Boy, that's crazy. I haven't done that in 100 years. I'm going to have to pay for this trip. This is going to cost me. Anyway, I got off at Selkirk. But that's the exit before Albany. Anyway, I got to be conscious of the time. I got my glasses right here on the dashboard. Let me put my glasses on. I think we're at 24 minutes, right? So it's disorienting. If you have a whiteout, yep, 24 minutes exactly. If you have a whiteout, if I can't see, right now I can see that bright yellow line. But the guardrails are painted gray, which I've always been like, why are you painting guardrails gray? And I can't see them. When the weather's bad. When there's fog, it's disorienting. And I know that my associate, my former, whatever you want to call it, not accomplice, acquaintance that works at this airport company, I think that's what I was getting at. He would tell me, yeah, as soon as there's fog, we're grounded. 100%. 100% grounded. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter how much money you have. And by the way, these people, if you hear that Kobe owned this helicopter, it's not like he has it in his backyard and he works on it or he hired a crew. He has a contract to the company. He probably co-owns it with other people. That's what these people do. Spielberg, I think, co-owns. Some of them are super wealthy. Maybe they own the whole thing. But it's not like they went shopping for it. You know, there's only a few of these companies that exist. And, you know, somebody takes care of it for them. And it's not like you go from showroom to showroom, you know, buying a helicopter. This is what the company has available. Do you want to co-own it? You want to own it? Well, here's the contract. Here's the negotiation. This is what's going to cost you. We have it's like leasing. We have our guys on the ground. They're the ones that'll make sure you have your cashews, your almonds, your fuel, the glass will be clean, they'll be vacuumed, it'll smell nice. But you know what? These people don't fly every day all the time. So the other 5 days of the week, 6 days of the week, guess what? Whoever co-owns it with them, they'll take it for a ride. And somehow the schedule works. Somebody has the priority. Let's say if two wealthy people order it at the same time. Well, there's a priority. There's a pecking order. Or somebody's going to have to change the schedule. I don't know how that works. I don't know how often that happens. But if you know you're going to fly it a lot, you might not co-own it. You might say, yeah, I don't want to co-own it because if I want to go to the Hamptons on a Friday, I don't want to share it with Spielberg. You know, because he's a crazy person. He always likes to go to Manhattan at 7 o'clock at night. And that's when I like to leave. Then I have to wait for Spielberg to come back. And then I got to leave at 9 o'clock for the Hamptons. I don't want that. And by the way, for them, getting into a limo, for you guys, for us guys, you know, getting a limo might be like, wow, this is crazy, this is great. But for them, it's like, oh my God, I got to sit on the Long Island Expressway. I got to get on the Southern States. It's going to take me 2 hours. Got to sit in traffic. I'm in a car. Time is money for them. And they have plenty of money. And then they have plenty of time. But they don't want to waste it in a limo. So Kobe, if you hear the reports that he owns the airport, the helicopter, he does, but it's not like you own a car. It's not the same thing. If you owned the car the way he owns a helicopter, every time you park that car, people would be tending to it 100%. That car would never age. There'd be a car cover over it, or every time. Everything would be, spotless, full of oil, full of fuel. You'd have all your water, your nuts, your snacks, whatever. That's it. Most of these helicopters do not have a steward or a stewardess. It's just two pilots: pilot, co-pilot, captain, and navigator, or something like that. And that's it. And there's there's the seating, and that plane was seating for 9. I think that's pretty maxed out. I don't know how much luggage they had on board, but that had really nothing to do with anything. I think we're going to get the investigation will come to a head, and it'll probably be a lot having to do with fog. It's very disorienting. Bad weather, whiteout conditions. Can't see the road. Can't see the lane next to me. I don't know. That's why it's raining really hard or it's snowing. You should have your hazards on in a car and do the best you can and don't panic. Most of all, don't panic. And if you are panicking, get off the road. Don't be in the left lane, the hammer lane, going 10 miles an hour. Move to the right. Move to the right and slow down and then eventually get off. Get off the road. That helicopter should have probably never been in the air. But we'll find out. As soon as there's fog, they should shut it down. Shouldn't have to fly above the fog. Shouldn't have to fly below it, whatever. I don't know. Whatever the rules are in California, the FAA rules, is that what it is? I don't know if it's any different than the FAA rules in New York. But I know that the company that my acquaintance worked for, their rules were fog, we shut it down. As soon as we get reports. And, I guess, there's people at the wherever they're arriving. I don't think they just land anywhere in somebody's backyard. I don't think my acquaintance told me about that. I think they just always land at a heliport. I don't think they landed like, see these movies, some guy owns a property, it's got like 100 acres, they just land at the house. I don't know if this company was doing that. But there are people at these heliports, and they give them reports. And everybody pays attention to the weather. Rain's a killer too, I think. I'm not really sure. Helicopters are not, immune to weather conditions. Freezing temperatures too, they don't fly. I don't know about extreme hot conditions. I'm assuming they ground them. It's dangerous. You're up in you can't like Sully landed in the Hudson River. It's very hard to subtly land a helicopter. All right, guys, see you next week.
I'm for a drive.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dumbing It Down with Dave. Goodbye, good day, good night, good luck, good riddance, Godspeed, good racks, and great skills. Take care.